honest. They said all the airplanes have all these things, and first thing they did was send me out to Edwards Air Force Base. Edwards Air Force Base is the Air Force Research and Development Center. That's where it's a crossover base. The civilian contractors make these vehicles, they give it to the Air Force to test. It's the first thing I did is get on the flight line. That's what they do. It's groundwork where you take out the black boxes and you put them in, make sure that they work so the pilot has communications. The problem is that all the black boxes that I worked on didn't exist. They had all these, at that time, transistors and diodes and things that we did not even learn in school. I was asking them, I said, where do you get this stuff? And they said, we have think tanks create all these things. Little did I know, at the same time I was there was a man by the name of Colonel Corso. Anybody remember that name?
Yeah.
Colonel Corso was in charge of retro-engineering the alien spacecraft technology into what we had. In other words, the crash disk that occurred in New Mexico, for instance, there was 18 of them. A lot of the disks were in good shape. Anyway, I'm at Edwards probably 2 months. It was a week before Armed Forces Day. I remember this, back at the end of August. When it gets to be over 100 degrees out in the desert, they don't want you to work because of possible heat stroke. So they sent me out to work on the X-15, who just landed. The X-15 is a forerunner of the space shuttle. It has skids. It has 2 wheels up front, but it comes in and then just pops out there in the middle of nowhere. The Muroc, the dry bed. Anyway, I goes out and I did my inspection on the plane, which is nothing more than a rocket. The guy's got to be an idiot to fly it. It's a rocket, it's just, that's all it is, with a seat in the middle. However, they gave me a Jeep to run out there, and I had to put 20 miles a day on the Jeep or they'd take it away from me. And I only had about 12 miles on it, so in the north end, there was a couple hangars. I was kind of curious. I already had all the badges on me. I was cleared for top secret. I goes inside this hangar, about the size of this room. And in there, I'm looking at this round silver object. Now, it's as close as you are, 10 feet away. I thought, wow, this is an interesting looking craft. I mean, I've just been working on the F-107. They didn't fly him, but there was a weird bird too, and the B-58, and that type of thing. At that time, it was really accelerated. So I come back and I asked my commander, I said, when can I work on that round craft? And he says, you saw it? I said, yeah. And he says, well, that's an ion-powered craft. Designed by Sikorsky, that's the helicopter people, for use in outer space. I could accept that. I said, when can I work on it? He says, you can't, it's still a civilian project. Well, I then went back to my room, and then I went to my buddy, just happened to be, coincidences, right? The base photographer. So I says, hey, get me some pictures of this spacecraft. And he says, George, what did he tell you? And I told him, he says, that's not true. And I'm, duh. And he proceeded to show me pictures of the spacecraft along with 2 dead aliens. Now, I did not see the aliens, I saw the spacecraft. No, I did not see the aliens. I saw the spacecraft. Like I say, that was my first physical experience at that point. And it's not the idea that I didn't consider there may be life in other places. It's the idea is, here it is, I'm being confronted to it, and I was really concerned, why did my commander lie to me? So I'm kind of dumb. I went back down and asked him. First thing he did, He reminded me of my top secret clearance. He's jail time and a fine. We actually joked about that. The fine at that time was $10,000. I said, look, my family's got money to but I don't know about this jail time bit. I said, I won't do anything. So he basically, we set it down. He said, by the way, next weekend is Armed Forces Day, and because you know what's going on now, I'm going to put you on duty. So I had to go out there. Now, the Air Force is dumb. Edwards Air Force Base is the most incredible base there is with all this super secret thing. They open it up to every civilian can go inside all the super secret things I had just been in, except for this craft, which is about 5 miles north of the base. In other words, the X-15, you're welcome to walk in it. It's like kind of like the space shuttle. You guys all seen the space shuttle on exhibit? You ever go look at it? You know you can't get inside of it with a spacesuit on it? Did you know that? It's all a lie. We never went to the moon. We'll go to the next, that's more later. Okay, now we got to go to the next thing. What happened at that minute? I didn't do anything more. I was immediately transferred off the base. I ended up in Tokyo. When he asked me how I learned a little bit about Japanese, that's where I did. Kudasai. At any rate, I was there for a little while. I decided I had almost 2 years in the service, so I wanted out of this crazy outfit. Then I contacted Peter Dominic, and I said, I want out of this place. I'm going to school of mines. I mean, there's only like 160 people a year get to go to mines. Mine's the #1 earth science school in the world. Dominic ended up going, what they did was they promoted and transferred me down to Biloxi, Mississippi, made an electronics instructor out of me. And then I was only there 30 days after I got to even get my certificate. Then they shipped me off to Illinois again, where I spent the next 2 years in nuclear missiles. So I was in the Hound Dog, I was in the guidance systems on the Hound Dog nuclear missile program. So I got an education on how nuclear works, on how the guidance system works, the capabilities we had at that point, vis-a-vis that. I got out of the service finally. Well, I have to give you a crazy story how that works. The Air Force, I signed up for 4 years. However, because I had 3 of the most critical skills they needed, and we were having a skirmish over in the Middle East, guess who they extended? Watash, me. Because I had over 4 years in, there's a small clause that says I was considered a career airman, and I could get an early out. So I applied and got an early out. I only spent 4 years and 23 days in, and then I went to school of mines, just to give you an idea. So I'm always looking for outs. Anyway, let's go back to the X thing. I told you I was building and doing things all over the country. This is where the fun part comes in. I built Colorado Mountain College up in Leadville, Colorado, 10,000 feet up in the mountains. An inexpensive project. I was invited to city council meeting in Aspen because I could build low-income housing. They needed it in Aspen desperately because the worker bees have to drive 30 miles a day. If you've been to Aspen, you'll know. They have to go down the Basalt and down to Glenwood Springs. So I went in with the city fathers, if you want to. We all had, just like here, we had a city council meeting, and I said, I'll tell you what I'll do for you guys. I'll build the low-income housing for the city of Aspen, and I'll give it to you. You don't have to put up a dime. What I want is the tax write-offs. I mean, I was making so much money, I looked at every dime I could find so I could shelter it. It ended up with everybody approving it except for the city manager. Took me into his office after the meeting over and he says, George, I want you to put $1 million in this account. Sounds just like my dad. I says, you've got to be kidding. I'm giving away to the city, the low-income housing, what you wanted. And I'm giving this all stuff, and you want me to give you personally $1 million for it. I backed out. I said, forget about it. Anyway, I built a house in Aspen, next to Estee Lauder. You all familiar with them? She built it next to mine. Anyway, the housekeeper had this incredible book. I said, I didn't pay attention to this. I'm not playing Monopoly. I mean, at that time I had my own bank. I even had a bank outside the Federal Reserve. Did you know that? Yeah, by the way, are you familiar that the Federal Reserve is a private bank? It has nothing to do with the government. It's like Federal Express, right? Well, I created my own bank too. And I had everything going except for I didn't have that franchise called that, being able to put up 20 times the amount of deposits. They wouldn't let me do that. but I did get away with it. I was licensed in the state of Colorado. I got out of that because you couldn't make any money unless you had that franchise, frankly. All I did was pay my officers, and I ended up, and that was not a good deal. Well, anyway, the house with this incredible book, I'm sitting here looking at it, it's a UFO contact from the Pleiades. I mean, I'm opening up the pictures. This was exactly the same thing I saw at Edwards Air Force Base. Now, this has been 20 years. Why doesn't the world know about this by now? 20 years is enough time to give the government time to come forth with the truth, right? You know, you're talking to a guy that's sitting next to a spacecraft, so I know they're real. And I'm sitting here looking at these pictures. So I decided to fly down to Phoenix, and I talked to this couple, and they say they were investigating a man in Switzerland who claimed to be in contact with beings from the star system, the Pleiades. By the way, his name is Billy Meyer. I said, look, I don't know anything about that. I know those pictures are real. They said, well, it gave me a little bit more story. He said, the Pleiadians said that they engineered planet Earth for 500 million people. Click, 500 million. I said, well, again, I don't know about that. And I says, what can I do to help you kids? And they said, well, what we need is money. I said, I can arrange that. You tell me what you need to do. And they said, well, we need X amount of dollars. And I said, I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll loan you the money. With the idea is that when you sell the books, I want my money back first. And then it's like, I'm going back to do my real estate developing. I mean, that's what I'm doing. So I put up the money. 60 days later, Masamenas, the guy's name's Lee. Lee sent me the accounting. I'm sitting here looking at the accounting, but there's no check. I said, Lee, where's my money? And he says, George, we found out who you are, you don't need it. I mean, I'm in an agreement. I said, okay. So I flew my little plane down to Phoenix and filed suit against him. During this 2 months that I've been involved with that material, they were sharing a lot of data with me. It's incredible. I says, I got to find out for myself. So my wife and I jumped on the next plane, and we went to Zurich, Switzerland, rented a little car. It's about a 45-minute ride outside of Zurich, a little town called Hinter Schmidt-Rudi. Hinter behind Schmidt-Rudi. There's some people in here that's been over there. Anyway, I goes knocking on the door, and a young lady answers the door, and she introduced herself as Bruni, and I said, look, I'm George Bruni, and I put the money up for your the publication of your material in the United States. And I said, I also put money into a movie called Contact that's being made. And I says, I've got a lot of questions. And she says, look, we're not talking to Americans, they're all crooks. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, they come and take our materials and our stuff like that, and they're supposed to give us a percentage of what they get, and we never get anything. And I said, well, I can understand that. I said, but you go back and tell Billy the buck stops here. I says, if I get these questions answered that I need to know, I says, I'll provide you whatever is necessary so I can assist you guys because the information should be given to the planet. Anyway, she leaves, she's gone maybe 10 minutes. Comes back, she says, Mr. Green, I'm sorry. Shirley MacLaine was here 2 months ago. She promised to help us and nothing. By the way, Lee is the guy's name, his wife's name is Britt, if that helps you. Britt is the secretary for Shirley MacLaine. A lot of collusion. You talk about dark energy, it's unbelievable. How they do keep the stuff, the information suppressed. Well, I says, okay, if that's all that's going to be, you're not going to do anything with me. I'm sorry we imposed about your time. I said, I'm going to take off and we're going to go over to Innsbruck. It's late in the afternoon, and I realize that I've imposed on your time without anything. I said, where's the closest hotel? And Bruni told us, and I said, we're checking in there and then heading off to Innsbruck. Anyway, next morning at 7 o'clock, we were just getting ready to get up and go down and have breakfast and take off. Knocking on the door is Bruni. She said, Mr. Green, I got a message for you. And I said, what's that? She says, well, we found out who you are. And she handed me